Hello, MJ. Ren's little waving bunny. Okay, all of my posts are posted. Posts are posted. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Hi. Hello. Welcome. Welcome. MJ. First one here. You're first. Congratulations. Let's hope it's the only first you earn today. This time. Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. It's Indigenous Peoples Day and another holiday. Canadian Thanksgiving. And no other holidays. Flemish. You're not first. Congratulations. If you're involved in my Discord, which I know you're not because nobody is. Uh, I had to work this morning. I had to work a really busy weekend, so I have had to prep myself in advance several days. So I know exactly what we're making because I had no way of last seconding this one. But it's Indigenous Peoples Day and Canadian Thanksgiving, so I'm taking those concepts and we're making a thing out of it. And that is, they go by the name Navajo tacos. I'm calling them here Frybread tacos because I'm uncertain of the etymology of the term. And that seems like a safe bet. They're neat though. They're not so much tacos. They're more like open-faced sandwiches. So the taco name also doesn't entirely work for them. But it's a type of bread that I've not had. I may have had it. I actually think there's a Frybread food truck in town here. But I've definitely never made them. They're not like tortillas. They're deep fried. So that's gonna be fun. That's gonna be the main experimental phase here today. But it's also fall and Thanksgiving. Thus, pumpkin spice. Now, I'm a big fan of pumpkin spice, but I think it is completely wasted on sweets. I think it is a savory spice blend that should be reserved for savory things. So I'm putting it in the meat. And then we're going to assemble a couple other toppings. I've got a few odds and ends. I got a can of hominy because I didn't want to bother with dry hominy. So I'm considering doing something with that, maybe trying to toast it as an interesting topping option. I've also got a squash that I might even attempt to deep fry. One of these beasties. We've used those in the past, last fall actually. I think this kind of squash I love because you don't have to skin them. You can eat the skins. Which is the most awkward thing with these ribbed ones usually is that it's so hard to peel them with the ribs, but you can eat this is a delicata. You can eat the skins on this one. So yeah, I've got a recipe pulled up. Got a couple recipes pulled up. The actual fry bread seems like a very basic recipe. Some of them call for yeast, some of them don't call for yeast. None of them rise long enough for the yeast to do anything, so I think the ones that include yeast do it for flavor. Yeah, open up one of these side documents. they're all just a little bit different. That one is powdered milk. I think the more authentic ones actually call for powdered milk as well. That one wants shortening. I'm not doing shortening, so we're going to try the other one. Okay, that one does have a rise, so maybe we should start that right away. It also has baking powder. It has baking powder and yeast, which is interesting. So let's slide over. Let's grab that and put it on my other screen. It's called recipe number 1, never fail Frybread. And according to this, it requires just a little bit of kneading and then an hour of rise. But again, that's not enough. Oh, I always forget how much yeast is in a packet. This calls for a packet of yeast, and I hate that. How much is in a packet? Because I'm not making 4 cups of flour's worth of this thing. 2 1/4 teaspoons. So if we cut that down to as little as half a teaspoon. Okay, that's the, oh, I put you guys over on the stove. You're supposed to be over here. We're starting here. Or, no, we're starting here because then I can do the oil afterwards. So let me get out stuff for breads. The tower of flour. The yeast. Yeast? Little jar of yeast, where have you gone? Oops. Knocking stuff around. Little jar of yeast. Little jar of yeast. The recipe we got here was from the site Algonquins of Greater Golden Lake First Nation, California. From my research, there was a lot of slight variations. Yeah, hi, welcome. We're just assembling for the bread. Baking powder, not soda. That's very interesting. I don't think I've ever done a bread that requires both. Sugar. And a cup, well, I don't need a whole cup, and powdered milk. Powdered milk, which I do keep on hand. Flemish. Rayuya. I already said hi to Flemish. Hi, Flemish. Hi again, Flemish. Rayuya, you're not first. Congratulations. Okay, we're gonna cut this down. I don't need 4 cups of flour. That's gonna make too much. I don't need that much. I need that much. So we're gonna make a smaller dose of this. It only wants 1 cup of water. That is so weird. At this point, you'll know if you need to add more flour or more water. Okay, well, fine. It says hot tap is fine, so yeah, 4 cups is a loaf. I'm not making 4 cups. I think we're gonna cut this down. Should we cut this down to by 3/4? Cut this down to a 1 cup thing, because I'm only feeding myself, and fried things aren't really all that good the next day. And by the sounds of this, it isn't hard to make. So I think we're gonna cut it down to 1 cup and cut everything else in into a quarter. In which case, I snagged my cord there a little bit. We will just use the quarter cup. One of the other recipes I looked at called for 2 cups and said serves 8. So that's also our measure. Better to have too much than not enough, but again, too much of a fried thing. Fried things often, especially fried starches, don't usually hold up very well the next day. Some people really like their day-old French fries, but you can't argue that they are the same. Yes, right, correct. The second Monday in October. It is Canadian Thanksgiving. It is also Indigenous Peoples Day. And it is only those 2 holidays, regardless of what other people may or may not say. So that was 1 cup of flour, a quarter cup of powdered milk. It's going to be half a teaspoon of baking powder. My baking powder might be getting a little on the old side, because it's kind of getting crumbly. Half a teaspoon of baking powder, a quarter of a packet of yeast, and a packet is 2 1/4 teaspoons, correct? Correct? I hate that. Yes, so I'm just going to also do a half teaspoon of yeast. Oh, I'm almost out of this yeast, which is good because I bought new yeast. A quarter teaspoon of salt and a quarter teaspoon of sugar. That's an 1/8. That's a quarter. And I believe the sugar one is going to be more important to measure out than the salt, because it is typically salt to taste. So I'm actually just going to do a pinch of salt. Okay, and that is all of the dry ingredients. And then I'm supposed to add a cup of hot tap water. What do Canadians do for Thanksgiving? As far as I'm aware, having spoken to only a smattering of Canadians, Jay chief among them, it's essentially the same thing. Turkey, potatoes, cranberries, pie, stuffing. But you know, sometimes you'll describe what you think is the same thing, and in actuality, it's something completely different. Okay, a cup of hot tap water. Because, you know, Canada is literally right next door to the US. They have the same basic suite of animals as the New England group that our generic stereotypical Thanksgiving is based on. Suppose if you get far enough north, then you're getting into seal territory, but I doubt that's the tradition. Okay. I did almost forget to mix my dry ingredients evenly together. But then I did not forget. So ensure to mix your dry ingredients together before adding your hot water. We don't want clumps, especially of the powdered milk. Powdered milk can go clumpy pretty easily, and a whisk does help with that. But let's add our 1 cup of hot water. Didn't even temp it. It didn't ask me to. It just said hot tap water is fine. Yep. And we dig it in to ensure that we have no dry spots. We want this to hydrate. We also want it to pick up all of its... Oh, you know what I just did? You know what I just did? I didn't cut the hot water by 3/4. I just added 4 times more water than I needed to this. No wonder it seemed so wet. That's dang it. So I made a pancake batter. Do I punt or do I just start again? Because it's supposed to be a dough, not a batter. Okay. Crunk, 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 crunk. I haven't lost much of anything. I can turn this into like pancakes. No wonder that seemed like too much water. Dang. I feel like an idiot. There's no way I can turn this into... Yeah, I guess I'll fry up some pancakes while I make more dough. We're going to set that aside. We're going to grab a fresh bowl. We're going to start again. Because it's supposed to be a dough that you can handle and knead. Okay, well, what have I lost? Not much. Not much in the grand scheme. It's going to be interesting. I don't know that I've ever put powdered milk into a pancake before. Anyways, so after you mess up, start again. I'm getting distracted because I'm chit-chatting. Because I'm chit-chatting about Canadians. Okay, once again, 1 cup of flour, 1/4 cup of powdered milk, a ½ teaspoon of yeast, which is just about what's left in that jar, a ½ teaspoon of baking powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of sugar, and salt, and a 1/4 cup, Make sure to combine our dry ingredients. Combine our dry ingredients and a quarter cup of hot tap water. Does dough freeze? Dough does typically freeze quite well, actually. That is the amount of water. I've got extra water because it says you might need more water, but not obviously 4 times the water. Dough does freeze. Dough does freeze dough. You can buy frozen dough. There's nothing special about that dough. But I wanted to do this like this. This has to rise anyway, so we've got some other stages to attack it. I mean, honestly, I think that a 1-to-4 ratio on water to flour is a very dry dough. So, especially since there's powdered milk in this, it's also going to take up a substantial amount of moisture. But let's see what it does. Yeah, just a tiny bit at a time, though. It immediately started to get sticky when I did that. Well, the third batch is too dry, which means I can add water to it. It's hard to take water out of the one that's too wet. Yeah, this is pretty good. It just needed a teensy tiny splash, and it's starting to pull together. Definitely not a high hydration dough, which makes sense if you're going to deep fry it. You don't want a wet dough. You don't want that wet dough. All right, I keep making that same joke. You don't want it too wet because the water will bubble vigorously. But it should be enough to pick up all of these little speckles. And we can always still add a little bit more water to it. But at the moment, I think it's going to be... it still feels pretty dry. It's sticky enough to pick up these little speckles. I should only need to knead it for a smidgen of time. And it doesn't, no, it needs a smidge more. Which I'm gonna do in the bowl to avoid making a mess. And of course, it gets wet on the outside first, which is not what you want. So I'm going to awkwardly knead it like this. And of course, the way to pull that back together is just a light sprinkling of flour. Because we don't really want the starches. What's happening is the starches are separating and dissolving into the small outer layer of overly hydrated dough. Which is easily corrected by just a dusting. Or should be easily corrected by just a dusting. We'll find out. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's supposed to be slightly sticky. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Knead for 1 minute, cover tightly, set aside for an hour. Again, we can pick up all the little bits. We can pick up all the little bits in here too. Still a little on the dry side, but I think it's supposed to be based on these proportions. And it was in fact slightly sticky on the surface, so. Is that a Furby? Oh, so how's everybody doing today? I have had a crazy busy weekend. We did inventory at the game store last night after store close. And then today was doing the double checking of the discrepancies and restocking. And tomorrow's going to be busy too because a whole bunch of boxes arrived. There you go. Nice little ball of dough. I'm going to say that's what we're looking at. I normally don't work on Mondays. I asked for Mondays. I actually only asked for Monday evenings off. Removing wallpaper from the laundry room. Gross. Okay. Wallpaper used to be the fashionable thing to do. Okay, flower tower is getting put away. as is the sugar dish, as is the baking powder, as is the yeast. Although that yeast is pretty much dead in terms of used up. Okay. Now, wallpaper used to be a thing. It was considered easier than painting. And better. And also, I think paints didn't used to be as available. Plus, you could put up patterns on the wall. It's really hard to do with paint. I don't know. Okay, part 2 of our project. This. For which I need a substantial pan, an even more substantial pan, a large pan. We're going for large, high-sided pan, so I can really get in there and stir it up. Bison, which I got on sale at some point and froze, and now we're thawing it out. And it comes with canned bean and canned tomato, although I have some fresh tomato, so we could go with that instead. But the most important element, our pumpkin spice. Which, the traditional pumpkin spice consists of clove, ginger, allspice, cinnamon, and nutmeg. Do I have ground clove? If I do, we might use that. Are you ground clove? You're ground cinnamon. You're another cinnamon. Okay, cool. I guess we need to use up cinnamon. Ground clove. So I have ground allspice too. So I have ground and fresh or whole versions of all the spices except for nutmeg, which I only have as whole. You don't know what to expect, and simultaneously that's going to be delicious. Well, as I said at the beginning, I'm a big fan of pumpkin spice, but I think it's wasted on sweets. I think it is a savory spice blend that people are just forcing into sweet things. The ginger is going to be the hardest one to incorporate, but the difference between fresh and powdered ginger is also enormous. I think I'm going to get the meat started. Should we add fat? We should add some fat to it because bison is definitely leaner than beef, and this one is a 10%. So we should probably add a little bit of starting fat to it. What are my choices? We could thaw out some bacon, or we could go for some lard. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? I suppose I have a little bit of tallow. Do I still have a little bit of tallow? Ooh, I might have finally got rid of that because I never use. Nope, I still have it. So I have a little bit of beef tallow. I do have some ghee. I do. I have tallow and ghee. Really votes for bacon. Ghee. Tallow. Bacon. And nobody liked the idea of lard, which was actually the one I would probably reach for if I didn't ask. So that goes to show how our brains, tallow, ghee, and bacon give a little bit of everything. That might be too much fat. That might give us a greasy result. I like the way you think of just, why not everything? ¿Por qué no los dos? I'm going to say not the ghee solely because I haven't cracked the seal on this one. So I'd rather use something that I already have open. And for that reason, not the bacon. You will see these red and yellow stickers on almost everything I pull out. That narrows us down to either the tallow or the lard. Follow your heart until it explodes from the lard. Fun fact, lard has less saturated fat than butter. I'm going to go with the lard. Lard. We don't need it much. We just want to get the pan started with a little bit something. A little something, something. Lard. Which comes out this just snowy white. So I'm going to use about that much, which is roughly 1 tablespoon. Yeah, lard in part, I think because the name is very suggestive and has become sort of a bad word. I think it has been unfairly maligned. And I also think the dairy industry probably leaned in on that and promoted butter a lot. So we're going to let that guy melt. Also, lard has a much higher smoke point than butter. So you don't have to watch it like crazy to make sure you don't burn the butter. Which it has in common with ghee. Ghee is a similarly very high smoke point. Okay, this guy's been frozen a while, so actually using him for something like this where I'm adding lots of flavor is ideal. Freezer burned meat is not bad. It does, however, lose some flavor, lose some texture. So I suggest using it for things where you're not really treating it like a piece of meat, but you're cooking the heck out of it and throwing a lot of other ingredients in there with it. Then you won't even notice those reductions in quality. Okay, we're gonna let that little puck there finish melting. Ooh, should we add an onion to this? Should we add an onion to this before I add the meat? Should we? Should we? Should we? Should we? Let's quickly dice up an onion. Probably half an onion. Probably need a whole onion. I've got a shallot. We could do a shallot. I'm gonna go with half a yellow onion. Knife. Guess we're going to take 2 layers off of that onion because that layer looks a little bit gnarly. And that layer looks nice and perfect. So onion in the pan. Pan is a little bit on the hot side. That's another thing. Because the lard has a much higher smoke point, it also does not give you any signals of heat as it heats up the way butter does. It never foams, it never sizzles until you add stuff to it. Which means your pan can become quite hot quite quickly without you noticing it, which is what happened there. That pan was a lot hotter than I expected because I am accustomed to cooking with oils that react more quickly. Actually, lard is an excellent deep frying fat, and if I was a little bit less concerned about budget, I would be deep frying in a block of lard too. We could try that sometime. You can't really recover the lard after deep frying very easily because it wants to solidify when it cools. Let's not put that in there right away. I was about to put that in there right away, but let's make sure we cook down our onions a little bit before I throw the meat on top of them. I could also do some garlic. Should have done the garlic in advance. Those onions aren't burning, are they? You let me know. You tell me. You tell me those onions are burning. Y'all here? Okay. We're going to use the crusher because it's fast. Cut our garlics down so they fit in the crusher because it's fast. These onions ain't burning, are they? They sure are. Just a little bit, though. Just a little bit, though. Okay, garlic is in. We garlic until that is fragrant. Which it has done pretty much right away. And then we slap in a glob of meat and start cooking it down. I'm gonna wash my hands real quick. We're not worried about stuff sticking at this point. We just want to break up the meat so that we have little crumbles. Because we're going to end up deglazing this with some liquids later. Okay. That's pretty good. Let that sizzle away. Let that get going. Get going over there. We're going to slide back over here. We're going to clean up our garlic debris and our onion debris that I didn't clean up. We need to assemble our spices because they need to go in with the meat before it completely cooks out. Nutmeg. I only use freshly grated nutmeg from a little nutmeg like this because the seeds here last for freaking ever. Whole nutmegs just absolutely last forever. So I want about that much of all my spices. Because I want to, well, maybe a smidge less on the cinnamon and clove. Those are quite strong. Our meat has given up a ton of liquid very quickly. I'm going to go the same route with the cinnamon and freshly grate some from one of these sticks. Whew. Although this is, of course, cassia bark, not true cinnamomum bark. Because real cinnamomum is hard to find. Dust some of the leavings in there. The ginger, probably should have gone in with the garlic, but I can put it in now. A lot of liquid in that pan. I already said that. Where's my knife? Why am I stacking everything up on that burner? That's a bad place for it. We're doing ginger about that much. It is not the nicest looking ginger I've ever had. Okay, it's I've been putting pumpkin spice in savory things for years now. Ever since I realized two things I realized. One, pumpkin spice is very similar to Chinese five spice, which we already consider to be a savory spice. Quite a lot of liquid has formed in my bison. I am going to throw the ginger in straight away because it needs to cook out a little bit in order to infuse its flavors. And we actually need to break up some more of these lumps. Although, this is doing a pretty good job of breaking itself up. And I'm not seeing much in the way of sticking either. Back over here. The other thing I noticed was that I did some Moroccan cooking. I think I did some Turkish cooking. The spices that we use in pumpkin spice are also very common in that sort of Mediterranean, the south side of Mediterranean, the east side of Mediterranean. And they use them in sweets as well, but they use them in meats. They're not afraid to use them in meats. Some cloves, some allspice, ginger, cinnamon, nutmeg, clove, allspice. Yeah, that's all of them. I think that people get heated about pumpkin spice because it's become memeified. It gets thrown into everything, but it is a legitimately good spice flavor mixture. Well, that's why we added. That's why I wanted to add fat at the beginning, and we ended up adding the lard. You're right. That is the reason I wanted to add some fat. We'll just add that, and actually, let's throw in a pinch of salt. Ooh. Ooh, it smells real strong. Yeah, we had a brief debate about what type of fat between ghee and lard and bacon and tallow, because those are the ones I have available. And I settled on lard. Okay, those are our spices. We're throwing them in. We're mixing them through. And if I need to add more of any of them, we have powdered versions of all of them that we can add to just juice this up a little bit, goose up what we've got a little bit. And here's something that I was surprised to see, but it was very consistent across the various recipes I looked at, was to add beans to the meat. I did not prepare beans in advance, but I do have canned beans. So I will be adding a can of pinto beans, drained. Shouldn't be cooking my spatula. It makes some sense. You want to bulk out the meats in your dish with an additional protein. Beans are a nice additional protein. But it's not something I necessarily would have expected. Ooh, we are toasting the bottom a little bit. We are going to have to deglaze this at some point. Yes, I'm also aware of that. Beans are an excellent filler. But typically I see beans as their own thing, less often as a bulking out component in another protein. And the third thing that kind of surprised me was a can of tomatoes with the juice, which is what we're going to deglaze this with. In this case, corn does not have the juice. But then so we're going to deglaze this with the liquid from the tomato. But this mixture will be good for lots of things. And then I'm going to stew this together on the back burner on low heat because we want it to soften up the beans. I worry I didn't add enough spices because I ended up adding quite a lot more bulk to it. That guy is going to sit back there, think about what he's done. Oh. He's going to live back there. He's going to think about what he's done. And we're going to move on. I'm going to put away a bunch of spices because I got out all of the spices. Okay. The bread part is coming along. The meat part is coming along. These things are typically dressed in the way of like a taco with some fresh lettuce, some fresh tomatoes, some fresh onions, some sour cream, some cheese, stuff like that. I did pick up some queso fresco that I thought would be a good cheese option. It tends to be slightly salty. I don't know this exact brand, but they tend to be slightly salty, but they're not aged. They don't have that funk. We did end up cutting half of an onion. I was going to do a quick pickle red onion. I got some turnip greens that I thought would be a fun alternative to just some lettuce. I find lettuce very boring. I think lettuce is largely a waste of time. But I kind of wanted to try frying. I kind of wanted to try frying a squash because we were going to have fry oil going anyways. Speaking of which, we should get our fry oil going anyways. So that's going to actually be the next thing I do is I'm going to pull out a cast iron. We're deep frying, but we're deep frying in a wide deep fry. There was a little bit of sediment in my fry oil, which is fine. This is going to be its last outing, but it looks like I got a little bit of sediment from last time. So heat that up. I don't need the Frybread recipe because all that's left to do on it is to fry, which I know how to do. The oil can do its thing. Let's slide us back over here. I don't know. I grabbed this. I thought it was an interesting idea. Maybe it'll fail. Who knows? I don't know, man. Squash. Then we need to get those guts out of there. squash. Well, maybe they can make seedless squash. This is the squash where you can eat the skin. So they succeeded in making a squash where you can eat the skin. But also, speaking as a concerned part-time gardener and also student of the sciences, I feel like we should have less seedless. Fruits. Because, you know, we need the seeds to make more fruits. Okay. Squash has been de-gutted. I don't grow my own thing. But you know, the farmer, I should say, who is producing the seedless variety is purchasing the seeds for his seedless variety from a big commercialized industrial producer. And he can't collect seeds to grow the next generation because there ain't no seeds. Taking the ends off. Cutting them about that. But I have also collected seeds from onions, shiso, basil. I think those are the only ones I have collected and replanted personally, but I have done it. Granted, I don't eat the fruits of any of those. I only eat the leaves of those plants. I'm trying to put those hardworking, evil corporate lawyers out of work. Anyways, this is going to be an experiment while we've got the fry oil to see what the heck happens. Don't cut your finger off, don't cut your finger off, don't cut... Dang it. I didn't cut my finger off. Those. Let's temp our oil, see what we're working with. Slide on over, poke this in the thing. 230, 250, 260, 270, 280. 316, 320, 330, going up pretty quick, 340, 352 is frying temp. If the farmer could collect seed, they might not grow true. No, you wouldn't select a whole separate field. You would just reserve a portion of your field, because that squash I just cut open, one squash produced, what, 50 seeds? Anyways, we're frying some squash to see what it does when you fry it. This is just deep enough for these guys to float, which is perfect. They do want to float right into each other, which is not perfect. Myself a glass of water here. The chopsticks were not really working for these, so I'm going to switch to ordinary old tongs. Okay. They're getting a good sort of patchy blistering on the outside. They look nice. I'm not sure what I'm looking for, because I've never done this with squash. They're bubbling vigorously, which is what you like to see in a fried thing. The bubbles have been slowing down a bit. Well, I bake them too, but I've never done this before, so I wanted to give it a try. How will we know? How can we learn unless we try? They're coming out now because they're going to be too... They're already getting a little bit too brown on one side. We're finding out. And you know what? If it's a complete fail, I won't fry the rest of them. We'll just fry a couple of them here. See how it goes. Temp down on my oil, because I do not want to overheat that oil just yet. Our dough ball has increased in size ever so slightly. Ever so slightly. So these guys, they should be thin enough to cook reasonably fast. It's a starch, like a potato. You can eat the skins on these, so I don't have to worry about skinning them. The inner surface definitely got more toasty than the sides. That's where the remainder of like the seed guts are. They're still quite firm, so this might not work for them. Ooh, they're still pretty hot too. Well. They're hot. Well, they're cooked. They're still quite firm. They have a lot of more texture to them than a potato does, but they are definitely cooked. But like, only just. I think you might want to fry them at a lower temperature so that they can be in there a little bit longer, because they want a little bit more time to tender up. But they're good. They're sweet. They're starchy. I think the technique needs a little bit of refinement, but they're on the right track. Not a fail. I don't think that exact one was a success, but not a fail. How would I tweak that up? How would I tweak that up? Make sure my oil's not scorching. Oh, it sure is. We got to use that oil. We got to use that oil because that oil wants to fry right now. So I'm going to say the dough has been waiting long enough. We're going to do the dough. We're going to do that dough. Well, the oil is ready. So, oops, I was already over here. I think I'm going to hang on to the delicata and do it with something else. Okay. We're going to take one of these guys. And we're going to roll them out in a circle. And then we're going to take that over yonder and fry it. And we're going to roll the other ones out while the first one's frying. Oop, it has poofed up dramatically in a way that I don't want. We might have to learn from that and do a quick flip next time. I'm just rolling them out pretty much exactly the same. So you guys watch that one for me. It's supposed to stay flat, and this one has overheated and also ballooned up. Taco becomes pita indeed. Although perhaps it will deflate as it cools. I don't think so. I think I might have gone too hot. So let's that one almost came out as a triangle. Miss Epsy, hi. This is my first time making it, so we are learning a little bit. I think my oil was too hot. It's still quite hot. Do I have a roller form? I do not. Frybread does poof. It's supposed to poof, but not as dramatically as like a pita. You're not looking for a... you're not looking for a pocket in the middle. That appears to be what I'm getting, is a pocket in the middle, so... Wow, did that one poof. I'm not sure what I'm doing. Wow, I wish my pitas would puff this this consistently. If I poked a hole in that last one just to let some of the air out. So I guess I'll do that again and then attempt to push it down. Huh. I mean, I guess. I guess this is what we're doing. Try pushing it down a little bit while it goes. I'm sure they'll be tasty. I think they're going to be a little bit awkward to get toppings on if they're domed. I can kind of compress them, but they sure are just kind of ballooning up. Perhaps. Perhaps. Well, I squished down the first ones. They're not the flattest things in the world, but they're squished. Yeah, I think we're gonna maybe call these Frybread pitas. Cause dang. Cause dang. The fried squash had a really good flavor. I think we just need to control our temperatures to make that a real winner. Also, we mustn't forget our mixture back here that has become very soupy. I don't want a soup. I want to cook it down It smells quite strongly of nutmeg and allspice. I think those are the things that are jumping out at me the most. So I am going to add a little bit of our powdered seasonings to it. Some powdered cinnamon. I don't need the allspice. And some ground clove. Because I feel like those have fallen behind a little bit. That guy got slightly forgotten about. And that's our fourth one. We're only making 4 of these. I could just smash them down. I could just smash them down. I'm going to add some black pep to that as well. We'll stir that together. It is very much like a chili, and some of the recipes I looked at, in fact, just straight up called the meat mixture chili. But it's supposed to be a little bit less soupy than chili because it's still intended to be a topping for your fry bread. So we're going to bring the temperature up on that and cook out some of the liquid from the tomatoes. And we're going to flip that. Whoa, that one went weird. That one went weird. Going to make the pancakes. Ooh, are we going to make the pancakes? Yes, it's normally pretty thick so that it doesn't run off the side. So I want my chili mix to be pretty resistant. That one went weird. Oop, I broke it. That middle bit really does not want to cook. Okay, okay. Didn't do the onion. I think we're going to do fresh tomato. Assuming this tomato's any good. Yes, it is. Because there's stewed tomato in there, but there's going to be fresh tomato on the top of the thing as well. That one went weird. Oh, and that one went pretty dark too. Got distracted on that one. Got a little distracted on that one. Let's move the oil. You want to try those pancakes? You want to try those pancakes? The batter's not going to last forever. Where's my... This guy. We haven't brought this guy out for a while. We haven't brought this creature out for a while. The stupid hex pan. We have a little bit of time to kill. While that meat stews down, let's try making pancakes. Let's see what happens. The stuff really actually thickened up quite a lot. Ooh, and it went bubbly too. The yeast did its work in there. Still more of a batter than a dough, but it did thicken up quite a bit. Can I season it with some pumpkin spice? Let's see. Allspice, cinnamon, clove, ginger, but then I have to grate the nutmeg. I can. There's our batter. Ginger. Clove. Cinnamon. Allspice. Nutmeg. And we need to vigorously stir that in. Because we don't want clumps of that. But it's plenty battery enough to get those in there. I can smell that my pan is hot. We must fry. Probably should have just done one. Again, this isn't a pancake batter, so we're just finding out what happens here. It might not work very well. I'm going to put some gentle weight on top of the Frybread to try to, you know, flatten them out a little bit. I made those to be wildly different sizes, too. This might not work. While we're doing this, we cannot neglect the meat, which is starting to seriously lose its moisture and thicken up. Yes, that's looking like the consistency I want. So I'm actually going to turn it completely off and re-lid it to try to maintain. The pancakes are the accident dough, or the accident batter from the beginning when I screwed up my dough. They have just been sitting in a bowl on the side. The batter has been sitting in a bowl on the side. But it's not a pancake batter. It is a failed Frybread dough. So we're cooking it up to see what it does, more than anything. This one's too big. But yeah, I don't know. We're doing something. It's doing something. It's not, it's definitely not cooking the way I expect a pancake to. It's kind of, but not like really. I'm worried they're going to be still doughy in the middle because they don't seem to be cooking very fast. I don't know. We had some experiments today. We love doing some experiments. Mmm. The squash piece that was slightly smaller and thus got slightly more cooked was better. I think you need to fry those until they're like past golden brown to like brown brown. Mmm. Hey, that looks better. The first side was a little bit pale. Maybe the pan was too cold when I put them on there. Fried squash on pancakes. Oop, that one's sticky in the middle. And Raya had me throw some pumpkin spice in this batter. So these are pumpkin spice failed dough pancakes. But yeah, we just, no sense in letting them go to waste, so. Yeah. Yeah, they're not, they don't seem gooey at all, so I think they're actually cooking correctly. I made one of them too big. Okay. And just like the fry breads, we got 4 of approximately that size cakes out of it. A little bourbon maple syrup. We came with the next chicken and waffles. I doubt we came with the next chicken and waffles. Chicken and waffles is a magical combination. Fantabulous. I do have quite a lot of plum syrup that I think would be good on these. I've been eating it with my oatmeal. That looks more like pancakes. We're getting the bubbles. I think our first ones were just the pan was a little bit too cold when I put them on there. Even though I could smell the hot oil, so I don't know, maybe I'm just smelling the fry oil cooling off. Something. What time are we looking at? Oh. Boop. Yeah. Boop. Yeah. Now those are good looking pancakes. Other than the, awkward schmear on the bottom because I slap them down. Okay, those are finishing. I'm going to cut this tomato, and we're going to find out if it's as good as it looks. Which I sure hope it is. I think we can just twist the stem out. Yeah. 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 Tomato, just enough time for me to come back and discover that these have cooked. Perhaps a little bit too much. Off and off. Both senses of off. You get off the hot burner as well. Okay, pancakes aren't part of our main deal. I was going to use this plate. This plate, which I think is a good size for 3 across. Now, one of these got really toasty. But we did flatten out the other ones by just putting a thing on top of them. All I really needed to do was put a thing on top of them. And they worked great. And that worked fine. So, that's the solution for if they poof up. I just put a bowl. All I did was put a bowl on top, and it kind of caused them to un-over-rise. The consistency on this meat mixture is excellent. It's soft, it holds itself together. It's not real juicy, but it's got a sort of a softness to it. It reminds me a lot of like Coney Island chili, which is perfect because that's kind of the consistency we were going for. I worry these tomatoes are too thick, so let's give each one of them another slice down. Lost the insides of that one. Oh, you know what I never asked? The thing I always ask. What are you having for dinner? Tell me about it. While we're assembling these, I think these are going to look really good when we're done. Some queso fresco, a nice, light, unaged, crumbling cheese. Literally fresh cheese. Common across all the warm Americas. Common across the areas where maintaining cheese without refrigeration would be difficult at best. Tasty. It's got a very milk forward flavor to it. It's just a little bit salted. You know, I didn't end up pickling any red onions, so we're gonna go with some fresh instead. Ooh, I can definitely feel myself getting a little on the tired side. Been a long couple of days, and this is the end point. Soba peanut sauce, lentil tofu curry couscous. Nice, nice. Well, I'm having these. I caught up all the dishes earlier, so there's new dishes, of course, from what I just cooked, but yeah, there's not a backlog. This time around, which is nice. Which is nice, and I should do that all the time. Have a not a backlog. And something green. And the something green that I selected was this. They went slightly wilty, but they'll be fine. Turnip greens I thought would be an interesting alternative to a lettuce. There. And that's them. That's our thing, plus a couple experiments. I should taste the pancake experiment. Ryuya's pancake experiment will be tasted as well. We'll taste one of those. But that's the thing. Thar she blow. We've got one unused fry bread. Yes, so these are called, in my title I called them Frybread tacos. They're often called Navajo tacos. This is how they're typically served. They're flat. The thing is flexible, so you could curl them, but they're usually served flat like this, with a fork and a knife rather than actually in a taco style. Although if you get like Mexican style tacos, they're served to you flat and you're expected to fold them with your hand. But that's the thing. And I'm going to go take a picture of this because I think it looks delightful, especially on this nice plate. Then we're going to taste it, and then I am going to do that thing where I relax, because it's been a tough couple of days. It's been a long couple of days. It hasn't been that tough, it's just been long. So yeah, let's dig in, take a bite, see what we got. Mmm. Surprisingly not that messy. Mmm. Mmm. They need just a pinch of salt. On the tomato specifically, but just a pinch of salt. It's interesting. Usually I oversalt things and don't need to add more salt. This time, just a pinch of salt. I taste those turnip greens in isolation. Okay, okay. So the red onion is giving me a really sharp top note. But the biggest thing that strikes me when I bite into this is the rich, warm spices. Our pumpkin spice comes through. It kind of pushes the meatiness of the meat to the background a little bit. It definitely maintains savory. Doesn't take us out of that realm. Oh, yeah. Leagues different with a pinch of salt. Oh my god. The salt has woken up the meatiness quite a bit. The salt has woken up the savoriness in the tomatoes. And it has also pushed the clove and the cinnamon, the allspice. They have those all jumped with that little pinch of salt. It's rich. It's got a very warm flavor to it. The fry bread is chewy. It's got a little bit of a crisp surface to it, which is also helping it resist any of the juiciness from the top. So it's not sogging out at all. It's really tasty. Again, I love pumpkin spice on meat, so I expected that tart to be tasty. The fry bread is really good here. It reminds me a lot of naan. It reminds me a lot of sopas. I imagine I could keep listing things that it reminds me a lot of because this is essentially small discs of quickly cooked bread, which I believe every culture in the world has developed. It reminds me of pita. It reminds me of etc., etc., etc. That's really good. And honestly, it wasn't that hard. And it's highly customizable. I think you could make big batches of this pretty easily. Let's have a taste of the pancake a la Rayuya. I can see the spices shot through it. Texturally, it's a pancake. Flavor-wise, it's something else. It has doesn't have any of the because there's no sugar in it. Well, there is sugar in it. There's just a tiny bit, but it's not just the spices. It has a very bread-like taste to it. Because of course it does, because it's yeasted. That's what it is. It tastes like a yeasted pancake. Interesting. You can taste the yeast. It gives it a sort of bread-like taste. Which was what I predicted, because none of these things, none of the recipes asked me to rest things long enough for the yeast to really do much. But yeast is also a flavor component in bread. Um, and I think that's what the purpose is here. It maybe gives it a little bit more rise, but I think it's there to improve the flavor of the bread. Oh, my shoulder aches from all the working. Um, and as a result, I think I'm going to wrap this up so I can sit down and rest, take care of my shoulder a little bit. Well, that was fun. That was good. Again, happy Indigenous Peoples Day. These are fantastic. They do need a little bit of salt, but I'd rather have them be undersalted and add a tiny pinch at the end. Yeah. So thanks for being with me. Let's see who we can raid out to. Who's on right now on this, a Monday? What is that? Pandemic, the board game? That's not cooking. We could see Chef Tay. I haven't seen him for a bit. Sure. Sure. Yeah, I think we had some good experiments. I'm going to figure out what to do with those rest of those squash half circles. The meat will be useful for lots of things. I can put that on top of rice. I can put that in tacos, like regular tacos. I have just store-bought tortillas. Ryu has got us hooked up with the raid messages, of course. We are going to go see Chef Tay, who is making chicken etouffee, which sounds delightful. We will all wish him a happy Indigenous Peoples Day. Happy Indigenous Peoples Day to you. Also, happy Canadian Thanksgiving to you, to all. Yeah. I'm not sure what else to say. Thanks for thanks for showing up. Thanks for sticking with me. Thanks. All round thanks. Congratulations to MJ for being first once again. And yeah, I'll see you next time. New princess wave. You don't make eye contact with a princess wave. You just kind of gaze slightly above the crowd. Uh, countdown should happen in just a second here. There it is. Bye.